having a VBAC at 41 weeks with no induction to a larger baby than my first. How did I do it? What did I change? This is what I would tell any mom who's preparing to have a vaginal birth after a C-section.
You are listening to Belly Birth Beyond with Pelvic Floor Mama, hosted by Becca Boving, a PTA, mom of two, and now your go-to pelvic floor coach. Welcome to the safe space where no topics of motherhood are off limits and judgment is left at the door. Too many mamas are dismissed when they've got valid concerns. If you're sick of hearing that's normal when it feels otherwise, keep listening.
My redemptive birth. Having a VBAC at 41 weeks with no induction to a larger baby than my first. How did I do it? What did I change? This is what I would tell any mom who's preparing to have a vaginal birth after a C-section. I'm going to share my story, and then in the next episode, we'll talk about if you're planning on a VBAC, what you need to do, because what you do is so important. Okay. So we were pregnant about a month after my son was born, after his first birthday. So 13 months after my C-section, we were pregnant. We ended up losing that pregnancy very early on. I feel like that was just kind of my train of command, or like how things happened. Our very first pregnancy we lost, and then it took a long time and we got pregnant with Cal. And then we lost this baby, and thank God it did not. We got pregnant the very next month. And I'll talk more about that experience later on. But this VBAC, I was 14 months postpartum, with our first. So 14 months post C-section. And I remember because of my history of having pregnancy losses, I go in for like blood work as soon as we find out I'm pregnant. And then we do it like every 2 days until it hits, a certain amount. And then we go in for an ultrasound. And I called the doctor's office, excuse me. And so we go through the blood work, all the things. So finally it's like time to get an ultrasound. So we get the ultrasound and everything is good. And it's like, oh, thank God, like breath of air. Like we kind of made it to this point, kind of still hold your breath for a little bit. I think you're always holding your breath after you lose one. And I had called so then we had to set up our intake, right? And a lot of times your intake's not till you're 8, 9, 10 weeks pregnant. And so the intake was at about like 7, 8 weeks. And it was on a call, actually. It was like a Zoom call with that. So you don't have to go in and like sit down and do all this because they don't do anything. And I had already done all my blood work. So there wasn't much to do except take like questionnaires, tell you what you want, all those things. And I wanted to go with the midwives again, because even after the birth of my son in the hospital, I saw all 3 midwives at this practice, and all of them were like, this doesn't mean, you have to have C-section forever. You can still have a vaginal birth next time. We'd love to support you. Like I'm so sorry it turned out this way, but it doesn't have to be that way. We can walk you through it next time. And I'm like, yep, I already knew what a VBAC was going into my birth with my son, which is ironic. And I was like, that's exactly what I want. I want to have a vaginal birth after a C-section. So I'm talking to the nurse who does the intake. She's like, oh, you can't see the midwives, and we'll probably have to schedule you for a C-section. And I'm like, excuse me? And she was like, yeah, because you're not going to be 2 years post your first C-section. So we're going to have to do another one. And then the midwives can't see you through that experience. And I'm like, there's no reason for me to have another C-section at all. And she was like, well, it's policy. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, I literally, like, what do you mean? She's like, and those midwives won't do a VBAC. They can't see you for a VBAC. And like all 3 of them came into my hospital room after my last birth and told me I could have a VBAC and that they would support me. She's like, well, hospital policy or policies here have changed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're telling me policies have changed in the last year? And she's like, yeah, actually. And I'm like, interesting. And I was just bawling. I'm like, no, I don't want to give birth here. And she was like, I was like, I'm going to find somewhere else. And she's like, oh, well, there's some other practices and this hospital has McLaren. I was like, I'm not going to Sparrow or McLaren. So I'm in Michigan. I was like, I'm not going to any of those hospitals. Not happening. I will figure something else out. And so after like my breakdown crying, like, this is not okay. What led me to know that I had the right to have a VBAC and that I wasn't that I was a candidate for a VBAC is I had a ton of education, and like I dove into all things VBAC after our first child. There's also some really great professionals out there who have VBAC education resources, research, because a lot of the things we're told about VBACs are actually like just scare tactics in a way, or misconceptions about what happens, which I feel like when it comes to women, there's so many misconceptions regarding our body, and like we're pushed into things that we don't necessarily want or that we think we don't have options for, when really we're just not given all of the information and even the research that's out there. Like, did you know that just being pregnant after having a C-section puts you at risk for a uterine rupture? That's a thing too, just so you know. Anyway, so I had all of this knowledge and stuff before. So I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I learned that OB clinic or that office had actually been bought out in the last year. And a lot of the providers had left because of it, because of the policies they're implementing and the turnover and things like that. So I was asking at the time, my boss's wife had a VBAC after 2 C-sections. And I was like, where did you go? I know you went to U of M, which is a great hospital in Michigan. And she's like, I did, but I had this doctor. And I was like, I really want a midwife. And she's like, I've heard great things about this midwife. And I think she had friends and stuff. So I'm like, cool, I'm calling her. So I called this midwife's office, got scheduled. On my intake for this appointment, they're like, you're trying a VBAC? And I hadn't even said anything. They just saw my history of a C-section. And then I was pregnant again. I was like, yes, I would love to try a VBAC. They're like, okay, great. And that was it. There was no like having to defend myself. There was no anything. It was just like, okay, great. So I finally go in and I get to see her, and oh my gosh, I'm going to start crying because my midwife, Emily, was freaking amazing. We go in there. My husband goes with us. I think we're like 14 weeks at this point in time. And she hands us this or somebody does while we're there, this like giant book almost of like everything you need to know about birth, week to week, month to month, like preparing, hospital procedures, like things to expect at your appointments, like even postpartum. And like, there's so much information in this book. I'm like, what everybody needs to have this. Like, you go to appointments all the time and you're like, oh, we're doing what test? What's happening? Like, did anyone else experience that with your pregnancy? Like, oh, what is that test? What's happening? And that this was like a booklet that helped you with that. But anyway, so we sat there and I have a list of questions for her. I'm like ready. Like, I'm like preparing for birth already at this point, 14 weeks. And we're talking. And one of the things I knew is I go past my due date. That's just me. I go past my due date. My son went past and I was like, I just want to know. So one of the questions I asked, I was like, so how far do you let moms go past their due date when they're trying for a VBAC or just in general? And she's like, honey, I'm going to stop you right there. It's not about how far we let you. It's about how far can you safely go for you and your baby, and that we can allow and support you. And she's like, that's how far. And I was like jaw on the floor, like almost gonna cry. And she, like, everything about it was, what do you want and what can we do to make you safe and your baby safe? And that was so eye-opening to me. Like, that is how our provider should be. Like, our provider is there to help support us throughout the journey and to help us make those decisions, not to like, they are like a consultant for us, right? Like, they're supposed to help guide us and be there. Like, in a way, the provider works for us. And so often we don't think that way. And we think that like we have to do everything they say and everything, like, and don't get me wrong, we have to listen to what they have to say because they do have a lot of experience and they hopefully have a lot of research, and hopefully it's updated research surrounding like why they're doing something. But ultimately, you have a lot of say when it comes to these things. So immediately I was like, I found my provider. Like, I didn't have to fight for a VBAC. I didn't have to anything. And I asked her too, because at this point I had a lot of friends who had C-sections, and some wanted to do a VBAC and some didn't. And I shouldn't say a lot of friends. I had a couple friends and some of them absolutely had to because of things in the past. But I'm like, what makes you a VBAC candidate? What is the pro and con? Because there's like VBAC calculators that are outdated. There's like, it's some of the things that are out there are just not true. And I had known this going into it. So I was like, this is a hospital that's very up to date on policies, procedures, research, things like that. Like, the research that they just did like a year or two ago about like being induced at 39 weeks improves the outcome for baby and mom. And it has not been proven. In that hospital, like a lot of hospitals have redone that case study or that research study and have not been able to come up with those same outcomes at all. And so I asked her, what makes you like a VBAC candidate? Can you talk about that? She was like, honestly, it's just if you have an incision that is like horizontal, like if you were cut the traditional way, not like an emergent, like where things are up and down or things like that. But if you have a traditional incision and you are a VBAC candidate, like you can have a vaginal birth. I was like, that's not very well talked about. She's like, no, it's not. And so went through my birth with her, or all my appointments and stuff with her, all the checkups, like asked all my questions, just felt so supportive. And I also was like going through pelvic floor at this time. So I was doing a lot of things to help support my pelvic floor. I hired a doula. It is so freaking important to get yourself a doula, but find one that like that works well with you and has a lot of the qualities and the help and support that you want. Like doulas truly are so invaluable if you find the right one for yourself. So I started working with a doula. That was great. So when the time came, I was like, I don't know, 38 and a half weeks long. And I knew I was going to like go over. And so I opted for membrane sweeps, but I don't think they really did anything at all. I don't think they did anything. So I had a membrane, I think I had 3 of them, like 38 and a half weeks, 39 and a half weeks, 40 and a half weeks. Didn't really do much. And so I was also like, we're getting closer. Like it's not being induced with a VBAC. You have to be very careful too. So I'm like, what would the process look like if I am going to be induced? Like and just kind of like going down that path. And so we talked a lot about that. And some things that you have to have at this particular hospital that I don't know how I just inquired a lot about was I wanted wireless monitoring because I wanted to move around free. And I knew that they wanted to monitor the baby from a VBAC and to make sure that everything was good. And then they also wanted to make sure I had an IV port just in case as well, which I was like not thrilled about. So let's move this along. 38 and a half weeks, membrane sweep, 39 and a half weeks, 40 and a half weeks. And she's like, we have to put an induction on the schedule. She's like, whenever I do this, it's kind of like the baby's going to come because we just evacuated her or told her she has an evacuation date. And she's like, we're not going to do it until 2 weeks after my due date. So she's like, at 42 weeks, we'll put you on and then you'll get called whenever and I'm like, fine, whatever. I know you got to do it. No problem. So at 40 weeks and 6 days, so right before I turned 41 weeks, I had, at 40 weeks exactly, I lost my mucus plug. I was having like contractions regularly, but not strong. I was so excited though. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't even made it to this point before. Like we might be going into labor today, texting the doula. Nope, it was false. We get home because I was at my sister-in-law's. I think my husband was probably golfing. So we get home and I messaged one of my friends. I'm like, come walk with me. I want to get this baby out. So we walked for a long time, and talked and caught up and stuff. And at this point, contractions had already like stalled, whatever. So I was going through prodromal labor. And this happened every day. So I'm like working in the clinic on patients and like every day I'm like, I'm having contractions, but they're not consistent. And of course, when you're working after your due date and also you get the comments at like 28 weeks with how big you are and like, you must be having twins or, all those things, you're just so like ready to be done. And I wasn't scheduled to have patients because that was my due date. So I was basically just like helping everybody else in the clinic and doing what I could. So false labor all week. Finally, Friday comes along and my doula also is a massage therapist. And she was like, in the morning, she's like, still nothing? I'm like, no, it's not consistent. And so she's like, well, I have some availability tonight. Why don't you just like come down on lunch and do a little massage and then go back to work? And so I talked to my boss because just to get down there is like 45 minutes. And so an hour and a half, right? Or was it's like 40 minutes to get down there. So it would have been like an hour just to drive there and then have like a 30-minute type massage and to come back. So I'm like, just so you know, like, can I do this? And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, just go ahead. It's not like you have patients here anyway. So I went down. She worked on my hip flexor. So this is so dang important. This is one of the things why I'm like labor preparation is so important for you because when she checks like my mobility of my hips, like bringing my knee to my ear, basically, you should have like full range of motion. My one leg looked good. but it was about half. So it was like I could do about like 90 degrees of hip flexion. The other leg was like less than that. Like it was bad. She's like, wow, your hips are so tight. And she's like, maybe this is why like your baby, like why she can't drop down into your pelvis. Like I'm sure this is what's going on. So she does a lot of like release through my hip flexors. She gets the right side that was super tight. She gets that one taken care of, like to the point where like literally my knee is up in my ear. And I'm like, great. And I'm like, so now are we going to do the other side? Because that was, we thought was good and it was awful. She's like, yep. So she came around, did the other side. So she released hip flexors. This is why it's important to work on like labor prep and mobility, work on relaxing your hips, your glutes, your pelvic floor, have mobility of your spine. I hadn't had the same education at this point with pelvic floor and with giving birth to my daughter as I do now. So that was like a big eye opener. And as soon as I stood up from her table, I was like, oh shoot. She's like, what? I was like, she literally, I'm not kidding. I felt her slide into my pelvis, like just slide. And I was like, oh my God, she's like in my pelvis. And she's like, good, I'll see you tomorrow at the hospital. And I was like, yeah, right. Like we've been going ring around for a week now. So I go back to work for a little bit. My husband and I, my grandparents take our son, just while I was working, they had our son. That was the thing on Fridays, and it was a Friday. So like, we're just going to keep him overnight. You guys just go like enjoy yourselves, like relax, do something for you guys. And so we're like, okay. So one of our friends was having like a bonfire. So we went to this bonfire. They have those anti-gravity chairs. And at this point I'm having like pressure in my pelvis, like all day. And so, and like, there's a lot going on now. Like there's some contractions, like some things. So I'm laying in this like anti-gravity chair at this bonfire. And I finally just look at my husband. I was like, I just want to go home. I was like, I need a hot shower and a bed. I was like, my body is like, I need to go home. So we go home and I don't end up taking a shower because I'm so dang tired. And I crawl into bed. He's like, I thought you wanted a shower. I was like, I'm too tired. And so, and I've been keeping track of contractions and they're still not consistent, but they're coming. And so we go to bed and I keep waking up and I keep putting in my app, like contraction, right? And so finally by like 6 a.m., I'm like, okay, what is happening here? I'm like awake from contractions and I'm inputting them for like an hour and I'm like, okay, like this is happening. And then, the contraction is like that Braxton Hicks feel where like your belly tightens and hardens and squeezes, but then it's like this other contraction that's like actually the most consistent, which is almost like that period crampy pain, discomfort, but not like pain, just enough to be like, there's something happening. And that period crampy is what it was like coming consistently. And I was like, this is different. So finally by like, I think at like 7, I took like a hot shower and stuff. And I ended up texting my doula because contractions are like pretty consistent now and they're happening. It's different. I can just tell it's different than what the last week has been. And because I had false alarms all week, my doula is like, we're going to have a code. And when you send this emoji, this is your code. So it was like ducklings or something. So she's like, you'll send me a duckling and we'll know it's real. So I sent her like 5 ducklings and she's like, that's a lot of ducks. And I was like, yeah, I think this is it. And she's like, awesome. How exciting. So like we talk. And it's like an hour plus for us to get to the hospital. She's like, I would probably just make your way down here. Well, I was asking, she's like, well, it's up to you. And I was like, I think I just want to go down there and just be near. So I wake my husband up. It's his birthday. He's supposed to be golfing today, even though I'm 41 weeks pregnant. He made a golf appointment and I made like this little self-care wax appointment, right? So I had to text my girl April. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm in labor, I can't make it. And she's like, I was like, I know you have like a 24-hour cancellation rule. I'm really sorry. She's like, girl, don't worry about it. Good luck, so sweet. And so my husband's like, okay, calling my friend, telling him I can't go golf because you're in labor. And I'm like, you might want to go take a shower because last time we were in the hospital for like 5 or 6 days. Like you might want to take your shower. So he takes the shower and he's like, so are we leaving? And I was like, yeah, we should probably pack up the car the rest of the way and go. So we pack up the car and we're driving. He's like, do I need to like get there? And I'm like, no, we're good. It's fine. Like I'm good. And so we're driving. Like I said, it takes over an hour. So it's like, we're like 15, 20 minutes away. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, these are coming. And it's just uncomfortable. And he can just see me in the car. I'm like trying to relax. My eyes are closed. I'm like just trying to breathe through it. And he's like, you good? And I was like, nope, I need to get there. And he's like, okay. So like, he like books it. And so we get there, we park in the parking garage. And as soon as I step out of the car, I'm like, oh my God, I feel so much better. And he's like, what does that mean? I go, I don't think like I'm in like full blown labor. I think it's coming, but I'm like that just sitting in the car just made me so uncomfortable, made the contractions come faster. And he's like, so what are we doing? I was like, well, let's just go in and just check in. It'll be fine. So we go in and check in. Our doula is like on her way. And they get us into a room, and it's like, I'm chill. Like, I'm not like really freaking out about anything. Like, you can tell it's not full blown labor. And so they come in, and I can't remember if I let them check me or not. I feel like I was like, I'm curious. So I'll let you check just to see if I'm where I was when I had my membrane sweep. And I was like the exact same. And I was like, dang it. But I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so then the other nurse comes in, and it seems like they're like super short staffed. And you have to remember, this was also like partway near COVID too. Like, this was a 22 baby. And so like things with COVID, like April of 22, we were able to stop wearing masks in the clinic. And I think in the hospitals, they still had them. Like, we were supposed to wear it in the hospital when I gave birth. So like COVID is still a thing. So short staffed is still a thing and all of that. And one of the nurse comes in and was like, she like mentioned something about going home and like how many weeks I was. And I go, I know you haven't opened my chart yet, but I'm 41 weeks today, and I live an hour plus away from here. She's like, you're not going home. And I was like, no, I'm not. And so they're like, well, why don't you guys just walk and go get breakfast? Like, you can leave your stuff here and then come back. They're like, there's this really good place down on the corner. I'm like, fine, whatever, sure, let's go. So my husband and I start walking, and we have to stop like probably on the way there, it's probably like every maybe 100 yards. I don't know. I'm not good with measuring. But initially, it takes us forever to get there. And our doula is like trying to find us. We're like, we're outside. We went out these doors. And so she's like walking around trying to figure out where the heck we are and meet up with us. And so we are walking, finding breakfast. The one breakfast spot is closed because it's the week of the 4th of July. So no one's there. It's closed. And I'm like, dang it, I really wanted their breakfast. I like looked at the website and saw what they had. So we keep walking, and we're having to stop every X amount of time. And like, now that my doula's there, she's like applying like counter pressure and like doing some breathing, kind of like some relaxation and stuff. And we get to the restaurant, we sit down, we order. I don't know why. Like, I really wanted my husband to eat because we hadn't ate breakfast either. But like, who can eat in that setting? He was like picking his food. I had like one bite of my food. And I just remember sitting there and like occasionally having contractions and having to breathe through it. I got up and went to the bathroom and came back down and sat down. And then I had this one contraction, and my doula looked at me and she goes, check, please. Can we get the check into boxes? And I'm like, what is happening? She's like, that was a really big contraction. We should probably get to the hospital now. Like, we should probably just make our way there. We don't need to be sitting here. And this is like downtown Ann Arbor, and it is full of people on this like Saturday morning. And so they're probably staring at me like, what is going on with this chick? And so I stand up and I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm like leaning on my doula in the middle of this very packed restaurant that's like very close together. It's like one of those, not hole in the wall, but like everything's super close. She's doing some counter pressure, breathing. And I'm like, okay, I can walk now. Like, it's over. So we like walk out. On the way back, I swear we couldn't even make it 100 feet without stopping. And like, people are driving by, there's people walking by. Like, it is probably just a sight to see. And I ended up walking there and back. It ended up being about 2 miles. I can't believe it. But there and back ended up being about 2 miles, a mile and a half, I think. And so we finally get back into the building, finally get back into our room. And then one nurse comes back. She's like, oh, this looks a lot different. And I'm like, yep, a lot different. We're ready to like get a room, an actual room, because we're like in just like the triage area. So she's like, no problem. So they take us back to a room. I asked to sit on a ball. So they get a ball, and I have like a million questions. They never asked me this many questions at the other hospital with our other births. So million questions, and doula's there, husband's there. And I look at my husband, I was like, might as well just go get the stuff out of the car now. I was like, nothing's happening. And then that way it's here when we're ready and we need it. And he's like, okay, yeah, no problem. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I'm getting asked 100 questions. You want to stay here for this? So he leaves to go get all the things out of the car, and my doula's still with me. And all of a sudden I kind of look at my doula and I'm like, my eyes are wide. She's like, what? And it's like, she could feel what I just felt. And I felt like a pop, but I didn't feel anything after that, just the pop. And I'm sitting on the ball. So I'm like, isn't that? And I'm like, partial sentences. And I finally stand up, and in the gush of water. And she's like, your water just broke. And I go, yeah, pop, water, that just happened. And she's like, ooh. And like, oh, and the contractions. So she's like helping me out of my pants because I'm still like fully dressed and like everything's soaked. And I go sit on the toilet because she's like, here, sit here. And as soon as I sit down, I was like, nope, I don't like this. I don't like sitting on the toilet. And there was a tub right next to me. And I was like, I want in there in the hot water. So the nurse, like, my doula gets the hot water going. The nurse comes in. Nurse is also grabbing like everybody. And So I get in the hot water. I'm in the bath. That was amazing. Like the warm water, right when you're having contractions was great. My husband walks in. All the lights are off now too. They like turn all the lights off and things like that. He walks in and he's just like, what the heck happened? I was gone less than 5 minutes. And I'm like, yep, full, like water broke. And here we are. And they hadn't like put the monitor on for the baby yet. They hadn't done any of the IV stuff for it yet. So they're trying to find an IV, but because I slept throughout the night and then didn't have breakfast in the morning and probably didn't drink a lot of water, I was dehydrated, like so dehydrated. They spent hours trying to find a vein, like legitimately. And I can't even tell you how many people poked and prodded me. I had my eyes closed for most of it, just working through contractions. There were so many people trying to find a vein, trying to come in like from all different areas of the hospital. Like it was insane. And they couldn't get the heart rate on the monitor from when I was in the tub. And so finally I was like, okay, I'll get out of the bathtub. I'll get in the bed. And at this point I was just like, I planned so much for a vaginal birth that I didn't plan for contractions. I didn't prepare myself for how to navigate those, how to like get through it. I just was so solely set on having a vaginal birth that I like skipped over this part. So having pain control, having like tools in your pocket, these are all things that I help moms through, like labor coaching, pelvic power labor done right, the Ultimate Mama Bundle. Specifically, they'll do Ultimate Mama Bundle and labor coaching, like helping you through to have these tools so that way you're not like bombarded like I was. Like I felt like such an idiot. And so I'm like, I just need an epidural. I can't do this. I don't know how much longer this is going to be. I think I just need an epidural. And I'm like, maybe I just need a C-section. Maybe I just need a C-section. And my doula's like, no, you don't want a C-section. This is what you wanted. You have a son at home. You want to be able to pick him up. And I'm like, you're right. Okay. And so she was really helpful. She was teaching my husband this whole time. She's been teaching my husband how to do like counter pressure and how to do things. And so that was really helpful through the contractions, and it helps tremendously. And so they can't give me epidural until they get an IV, and they still haven't gotten an IV in. So it's like it's like maybe not hours. It felt like forever. Also the anesthesiologist that came in was definitely like a student or a resident or somebody. And I didn't know, and I wish I would have known. And so she's like reading, once they get the IV, and they're like, she's reading me like all the things of an epidural, like, right. Like all the things that you have to consent to. And she's like stopping when I have a contraction. I'm like, don't stop because I'm having a contraction. Just keep talking or we are going to be here forever. And so she's like, okay. So then like we get through everything. She does the epidural. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. We're good. Everything's fine. Apologize for being mean. And the one nurse was like, you're about to have a daughter and you're apologizing. She's like, there's absolutely no need to apologize for your, like, she's like, women apologize for things that we shouldn't all the time. And we're going to stop that. Like, I can't remember how she worded it, but I was just like, dang, like I need to remember that. And it was amazing because everyone who walked into my room was like, we're having a VBAC. Like all the doulas who came in, or not doulas, all the midwives who came in and nursing staff, like they were like celebrating having a VBAC. And it was so like amazing and uplifting. They also had my like birth plan posted at the one computer when you walk in, that I had it next to the bed, and they also had it in the bathroom. So it was like literally everywhere. And they were very respectful of this. And it was so nice. And so progressing through labor, all the things, when ended up, one of the nurses like, you might be like, if you have your baby before I have to leave, this is going to be the most I have. Like, we're going to set a record, not a record for me type of thing. But it didn't happen. And so by the evening, we are now, when I remember getting to like 10 centimeters, because I was like, oh, I was 8 centimeters first, but she's like, I feel like I just want to check you. And I was like, fine, whatever, check me. So she checked, she's like 8 centimeters. And I was like, don't tell me unless I'm at least 8 centimeters. She's like, okay. So she did, she's like 8 centimeters. So I was like, are you just saying that because I said, don't tell me? She's like, no, you really are. So I'm like, okay. So I keep moving, changing positions. My doula was helping me. And then I get to 10 centimeters because I'm like, I'm feeling a bit more. She checks, she's like, you're 10 centimeters. And I cried because I had never made it to 10 centimeters. That just the fact that I made it to 10 centimeters was like, I started crying. And it was like all of the emotions that I was holding from my first birth was just like, that was like my healing moment of like, oh my God, like I did it. I'm here. However, for you mamas, 10 centimeters does not mean 10 centimeters and push. And this was a piece that I didn't necessarily know at the time. So just so you know, 10 centimeters does not mean it's time to push. We got to make sure your baby's in the right position. So they're like, okay, we'll just start bringing some people in. And they are teaching me to push by holding my breath and bearing down. And I'm like, this is not right. Something is wrong. This is not right. And I'm like, I thought it was the positioning I'm in. So I'm like trying to change the position and do all these different things, and nothing's working. I'm like, something's not right. So I had my husband pull out my phone And I'm like, is this why women push for hours? Like, what is happening? And they're like, yeah, a lot of women push for hours. I'm like, no. You guys, if you're pushing for hours, it's because you're not pushing when you're supposed to be and you're not pushing correctly. Holding your breath and bearing down is not okay. And I knew this, but I didn't like have as much knowledge or like confidence going into this birth to be able to advocate for myself in a way. But I asked my husband, I was like, pull out my phone. I was like, in one of the tabs open is this thing. It was this like course I had taken. I'm like, open it up right now, please. So he does. And I'm literally in the midst of labor, not pushing anymore, just breathing. And I'm going through this. And I'm like, that's why I'm not pushing the right way. I'm not in the right position. I'm going to keep moving until I get into a position. I made them help me move like, I don't know, probably 10 different positions until I found one. And then I just was like, I'm not ready. Don't talk to me. Don't do anything. I just sat there and breathed and like found like my zen, I guess, for I don't know how long. It felt like a really long time. It probably wasn't that long. And I wasn't pushing at all. And then all of a sudden I was just like, I don't remember what happened. If I like actually like breathed out, and my doula, all I remember is my doula was like, I see her head. And I was like, no way. I did it. I was like, it's the breathing. Like you're just supposed to breathe. You're not supposed to hold your breath and count to 10. You're just supposed to breathe. So at this point, I'm like, what? And so then they didn't have anyone in there at this point. It was just the nurse with us. So they run and grab a midwife. They're like, we see her head. She's crowning. And so as soon as she said, I see your head, I just started pushing. I didn't listen to my body. I didn't do anything that you're supposed to do. I was just so excited that I was crowning and she was coming that I pushed through literally everything and not when my body wanted me to. So this led to a significant tear, like a grade 3C tear. So what that means is like almost completely through front to back. There are only 2 structures that I did not tear through. This is important because this is why learning how to push and when to push is like, it's important, and listening to your body when you push. Another reason why I'm so passionate about this is because so you can heal and recover better. I was really lucky though. They gave her to me, put her at my chest, and I literally was like, I effing did it. Like I full out swore and everything. And they're like, oh, her first words. And I was just like, I know that was really inappropriate, but everybody was like cheering. It was really exciting. It was a VBAC. And when I was done, I did not want any Pitocin, and I didn't have any, but I was hemorrhaging. And so the doula or the midwife was like, I know you don't want Pitocin, but you are like, you're hemorrhaging. We need to administer Pitocin. And that was one of the things on my birth plan where I was like, if I'm having excessive bleeding, like it's fine. So they administered like Pitocin. She also was waiting for like my placenta to come out, and she was waiting very impatiently because at this point I didn't know I was hemorrhaging. She's like, your placenta is just sitting here. And I'm like, is it attached? Is it just sitting at the opening? Like if you pull it, are you going to pull like other things? Like tell me what's going on. So she kind of talked me through it. And I'm like, if it's just sitting there and it's not attached to anything, I guess you can just, and it's like, she's like, it's like right here. Like I can just like grab it and type of thing, like whatever, fine. And she was worried about the bleeding and things. So she did that. They brought somebody in to do the stitching, and I guess it was someone who was beyond amazing in this area. My epidural was higher for her stitching than it was for my birth. So when she went to do the stitching, I like couldn't move my legs. I couldn't feel anything down there. So how high your epidural is going to change like if you're able to move and what you're going to feel. So that's why it's important to kind of like have a lower dose epidural if you're going to have one. So that way you can still move and turn and like be able to do things and you're not quite as shaky. Because after having like the highest dosage that you could have and the numbing and stuff, like I could not walk. Like my legs were so numb for so long that we had to wait forever to be able to stand up. But they did a great job stitching. And then also I already had my education in pelvic floor. So I went and saw somebody, my mentor actually, at like 2 or 3 weeks postpartum, like immediately to help with it. I also helped myself by protecting my pelvic floor through those first few weeks because I had a significant tear. I was terrified of having prolapse and like peeing myself and sex never being the same, like all the fears that a lot of women have. Like I was freaking out. And that really helped. So I had no issues with my pelvic floor after birth, even with having the significant tear. But I know that a lot of moms don't have that help or that support. And that's that bridge, that gap that I'm trying to bridge, the gap that I'm trying to bridge. So that way there's more help and support for you. And you're not just like left on your own for 6 weeks. Those early weeks are when you can really help and support yourself. And I was still picking up my son who was a toddler and like doing a bunch of things. And I think being able to protect my pelvic floor while I do these things was really helpful. Like that's one of the reasons why I didn't have prolapse, why I didn't like pee myself when I didn't want to. And then I also went at 2 or 3 weeks, and I was having like a gentle scar massage type of thing where the stitches were, and just helping with the healing and stuff in that way, which we don't get a lot of, and we need more help or support through. So overall, that was my VBAC experience. It was beautiful. We spent 24 hours in the hospital. She was born at like 10:37 at night. Literally the next night at like 11:30, we were out of there. And they're like, 11:30 at night, are we discharging you really at night? I'm like, we are not staying another night. We want to stay in our own bed. We don't want to be here. And they're like, are you sure you're good to drive home? You live far away. And I'm like, my husband's way better at night than he is during the day. So let's go tonight. So that way we're not like scrambling in the morning, and we can sleep in our own bed and do all of the things. So we ended up going that night. Everything was so much better and different, and it was so much easier, and like recovery was different, but it wasn't like the inability to walk or shower or even pick up her from the bassinet. Like I couldn't even pick up my son after I had my C-section in the bassinet. But for her, it was like I could do everything that I wanted to be able to do. And it was easy. It was okay. And still listening to your body and being able to rest and like allow your body to heal and recover is important during those early times. But if you were wanting to have a VBAC, there's so much that you can do. And it really comes down to also finding, if you can, I know a lot of areas don't allow it, but finding a provider who actually supports a VBAC and isn't just like, sure, we can try, but let's get a C-section on the books or something like that. And so that really made the biggest difference. And it was such a great experience. Within just the first visit of my new midwife, my husband and I were like, we had more information in one visit than we did an entire pregnancy and postpartum experience with our first. So it's a redemptive experience. And I want every mom to be able to experience that. Like, oh my God, we did it. And it was so beautiful and amazing. Like the first time, without having the traumatic experience or the traumatic story to push you to really educate yourself and feel prepared and ask the right questions and know how to prepare your body. Because even with my second, there's so many things that I could have done differently. And even now I'm like, we should just have another one so I can have another, repeat. I can do this better, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Just having a good experience and preparing yourself, it can make a big, big difference. So there's a redemptive story. I hope that gives you some hope if you're preparing for a VBAC or if you're preparing for birth and you're like, okay, there's some things that I need to start doing. I'm here to help and support you, and I'm here to cheer you on along the way. Sending you love.
Nothing is TMI when it comes to motherhood, and common doesn't necessarily mean normal. Always trust your gut and never stop advocating for the care you deserve. If you enjoyed this podcast, help it reach more mamas like you by subscribing and leaving a review on your preferred listening platform. Keep in touch with me on Instagram by following Pelvic Floor Mama. See you next time.